All right, so in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to show X as an inferior good when it becomes more expensive using the income and substitution effects to guide us in this indifference curve analysis. So first off, if X gets more expensive, what's going to happen is we're going to be able to consume less X even if we consume 0 Y, but we would still be able to consume the same amount of Y if we consumed 0x. So what's going to happen is we'll get this rotation of our curve to what we'll call budget constraint 2. All right, and so at this point now we can go through and we can say, okay, well, what is happening here? What we have to do to get the substitution effect is take the new slope of the budget constraint and put it onto the old level of utility or the old indifference curve. So let's take this new budget constraint and let's take that slope and slide it onto the old indifference curve. So we'll get something of the sort like this. If we kind of move that parallel over until it just touches, we'll be at some point here. So we'll have moved from the original point, point A, to point B, and from A to B is our substitution effect. And now we said, okay, so this is an inferior good, and we know that our substitution effect decreased how much X we consume. When we have an inferior good, the substitution effect and the income effect work in opposite directions. So our income effect must increase how much X we consume. So here we have this inferior good. We're going to say, okay, it has to go in the other direction. So point C has to increase how much X we had relative to point B. And so we must be somewhere beyond the amount of X at B. And we'll pull it to right about here. And we'll say from B to C is our income effect. So what we had was we had a move from A to B as our substitution effect, and then B back to C as our income effect. We can see this as an inferior good when X becomes more expensive. X has become more expensive, so we now have less income to go around. We actually consume, in terms of our income effect moves us towards consuming more of that good. Right? So from B to C, we actually consume more because we increase the amount of X that we get for our income effect. But because we had a relative price change, we still end up dropping from A to C the amount that we actually consume overall. But the change is really, the decreased amount that change is really because of the substitution effect, the move from A to B. Now, if C would have moved so far down, say to somewhere like here, that the income effect was actually larger than the substitution effect, then we would have what is called a Giffen good. But we don't. Instead, we just have this kind of standard case where we have an inferior good, where we have two utility curves, two indifference curves representing levels of utility, right? And we move from A to B as our substitution effect, and then B back to C and our income effect. And because they move in opposite directions, we have an inferior good as X.